The president is dead. The Zen-1 virus has taken over the Earth, and it is called an extinction-level event. Lieutenant Mark Hammond, a Delta Squad fighter, is in a hurry to save the last doctor working on creating a vaccine against the virus. Just at this time a new evacuation order arrives for everyone in California. An ANT operative named Simon Citizen Z. Cruller helps deliver the helicopter to his location. When Hammond arrives at the doctor's office, he discovers that 3 prisoners are infected with a strain of the zombie vaccine. The vaccine does not work on the first 2 and they are killed, but as soon as they test the virus on the last prisoner, confusion begins and zombies attack. Hammond evacuates the doctor and puts her on a helicopter, and he returns for the last prisoner. Meanwhile, Citizen Z remains at the Northern Lights listening post. A year later, in upstate New York, we take part in the funeral of a dying elderly woman named Sophia Nana Grisolt. Roberta Warren, a woman from the U.S. National Guard, pays homage and puts her out of her misery. She receives a message that 2 men are on a boat. She joins Guardsman Charles Seth, and the 2 of them wait for the men in the boat to swim to shore. The 2 turn out to be Hammond and Murphy, the last prisoner with him, who is now considered the last chance to save humanity. Back at the Northern Lights station, Citizen Z talks to a recording of his girlfriend Daisy. A call comes in, the government needs to know where Hammond and Murphy are, and Operation Bitten Mark has failed. Meanwhile, Roberta and Charles decide to help deliver Hammond and Murphy to the Tapunzi Bridge. And now we meet Edison Audie Carver, Mac Thompson, and Stephen Doc Beck, 3 survivors who receive some ammunition tips from 2 merchants named Skeezy and Sketchy. Audie chooses an aluminum bat with spikes, and Doc trades with aspirin and OxyContin. They are attacked by 4 zombies and killed, after which they return to Camp Blue Sky. At the camp, 2 other survivors, Redburn and Donner, are patrolling the neighborhood when they discover several zombies resting on the shore and hundreds more floating in the water. Zombies only pretend to be dead and rush to the camp. Roberto and Charles are worried when they call the camp and can't get in touch. Then Mark decides to tell them why Murphy is so important and shows him the zombie bites on Murphy. Doc gets in touch by radio and realizes that the Blue Sky camp has been invaded by zombies. While Audie, Mac and Doc escape, Mark, Roberta, Charles and Murphy come back for them. Plus, the team drives up to the meeting place near the high school and finds out that everything is captured by zombies. Then they discover the child inside the damaged car. The survivors also rescue Cassandra, an American of Cambodian descent, who has been locked in a cage for 2 days, hiding from zombies. She tells the team that the school was overpopulated with survivors, and then zombies attacked her. The team decides that they will take the child to the next outpost and raid in search of supplies. Meanwhile, a sniper is watching them. The sniper then saves Doc's life from the roof after he is attacked by a zombie. Then they are attacked by a ton of zombies. During the attack, a child dies for unknown reasons. Hammond goes there to find the baby and kill him, while the rest of the team discusses the possibility of leaving the baby there forever. When Hammond finds a revived baby, he is attacked by both the baby and the mother, who begin to eat him. The team shoots at the simulated Delta operative, as well as at the inanimate mother and baby. Charles Garnett becomes the leader of the group. The team is standing in the parking lot of the high school, wondering what to do, and at this time Citizen Z interrupts them, establishing contact. He finds out that Hammond is dead and asks if it's safe or the package. Since Charles Garnett is now in charge, Citizen Z brings them up to date on Operation Bite Mark, during which Murphy is brought alive to California. Charles decides they're in business, and they stop on their way home from school to pick up the sniper who saved Doc. During the trip, Murphy pulls out a tooth. Citizen Z begins by trying to contact the Mount Wilson station of the Center for Disease Control, but they were attacked by zombies. To get them out, he needs to remotely fry their central computer, but this will erase all computer data files, including information about the vaccine. Watching the zombie advance, he executes the command, deleting files, including Murphy's information document, while the Mount Wilson Command Center crashes. Meanwhile, the team finds themselves on the side of the road when one of the cars runs out of gas. Also, they need to get the zombies out from under the tire, But when two bikers pass by, Cassandra hides. When Citizen Z realizes that someone is approaching the Northern Light listening station, he goes outside and arms himself. Meanwhile, the team drives into the mall to find gasoline and supplies. At this time, Travis, one of the bikers they saw on the road earlier, appears and says that gasoline may be at an oil refinery in New Jersey. The team goes to the refinery, and Citizen Z approaches a man on a dog sled near the Arctic listening station. But he turns out to be a zombie, and Citizen Z shoots him. But he realizes that one of the dogs is still alive. When the team drives up to the refinery, they see that it is overflowing with zombies. Then the team realizes that what is inside one of the distillation columns and making noise attracts zombies. The team smells gasoline, so they know it's there and decide they'll go inside and investigate the refinery, but also decide they might be able to steal a tank of gasoline. From past experience, Cassandra knows that zombies love high-frequency sounds, for example, a music box that she wears as a necklace. When Cassandra and Travis climb to the top of the stairs, he tells her that she has to go home. Meanwhile, Audie Carver and Mac Thompson walk behind and unceremoniously kill zombies on the way up. When they manage to jam a pipe at the top of the tower using a compartment, they find out that zombies are falling into a pit with oil. Meanwhile, the zombies are attracted to Cassandra's music box. While Roberto and Charles fill up the tanker truck, Murphy and Doc play cards and tell their stories. Murphy is lying when he says he volunteered to test a zombie virus. He says that he is afraid of zombies when several of them surround the car. This immediately causes him to panic. When Doc tells him to relax and goes outside to show mercy, Murphy locks the door. At the top of the platform, Cassandra and Travis argue about how she will never come home, and then Travis asks what would happen if I told them who you are. At the listening station in the north, Citizen Z tries to kill the revived dog he saw earlier. He tries to do this by shooting her with his gun, but shoots randomly. Zombies are everywhere in the refinery. Doc is fighting them off. The sniper deals with them, but Murphy drives off to the group's cars before Doc has time to return. While the zombies are crowding around them, Charles tells Roberty and the others to leave, and he saves Murphy. Meanwhile, Travis holds Cassandra hostage at the top of the building and tells her it's time to go home. He uses a stun gun to disarm her, but it doesn't work on her. The reason, as she states, she is used to it. She throws him off the top of the structure, and he falls dead. Cassandra throws her necklace from the music box down to get rid of all the memories of the life she is leaving. Citizen Z is running out of ammo. A live dog is attacked, as a result of which Citizen Z tears off the board from a nearby box and jumps down to kill the zombie dog. After Murphy crashes the truck, a fire breaks out, which sets the tanker on fire along with all the fuel they were hunting for. Having failed the task, the team leaves the refinery at the moment when the zombies begin to catch fire. The sniper manages to get a couple of fuel cans, Audie returns his bat, and Citizen Z discovers them thanks to the explosion. He gets access to the payphone through the AMP listening network and advises the team to keep moving west until they hit the ocean. While the team is traveling to California, two more bikers appear at the refinery, who recognize the zombified Travis. They kill him and presumably go on the trail of Cassandra. The episode begins with a flashback. We see a bit of Cassandra's past. At one time, she was a member of a group in Philadelphia in which she posed as a prostitute, luring surviving men into trailers with the promise of sex only to help rob them and add to the group's cannibalistic food supplies. In the present, she is traveling with Roberta and Charles to Philadelphia. They find a truck with a Liberty Bell attached to the back, and when they open the door to steal it, a zombie jumps out. After the sniper quickly neutralizes the threat, the group appropriates the truck and drives off with the Freedom Bell, but is quickly distracted when the truck swerves to avoid a zombie attack. The bell falls and kills several zombies. Back at the Northern Light listening post, Simon cooks a steak for his new pet. He mentions that he has a huge supply of food there, including several types of steak. In Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia cannibals are gathered at a table to eat when one of the family members returns and informs his leader Tobies that Cassandra has been found. Meanwhile, the team finishes the last food found, mostly Twinkies. They decide to split up and look for food and some kind of antenna with which Addie can contact Citizen Z. Audie and Mac find a police cruiser with a working radio and eventually kill the zombie policeman along with his detainee. Doc, Sniper and Cassandra talk about pornography while guarding the satellite dish, and Cassandra runs away when she realizes that her family has found her. They decide to kidnap Audie, hoping that the group will be ready to make the desired exchange. Citizen Z manages to connect to the police radio in time and hear how Audie is being abducted, and then pass this information to Mac on his return so that he does not think that she was bitten. Mac takes the camera from Audie and hastily retreats, as they are attacked by new zombies. Tobias tells Audie not to be afraid and plays a creepy melody on a small organ, and then offers her meat of unknown origin. ADI says that she is not hungry and does not want to join their group, and then two other girls take her away for new clothes. The team confronts Cassandra because Audie's camera shows that one of her kidnappers was Travis of the refinery, which means Cassandra is involved. She cracks up and tells them about Tobies, the leader of the family, and describes them as something worse than zombies. They are cannibals. They don't eat the dead, because the corpses are infected with the zombie virus Zen1. They capture living people and slowly cut off their flesh. The group decides to go and rescue Audie, while at the house in Upper Darby, the family sits down to a table that is now known to be a pretty creepy dinner. While Audie gives an impossible ultimatum, the rest of her group pulls up, and Charles confronts Tobies after he signals a sniper to kill a member of Burnt's family. Finally, Cassandra approaches and offers herself as a prisoner exchange on Ada. Back at the truck, the team gathers to discuss what to do next and whether they should go back and rescue Cassandra. They call Citizen Z on the police radio and ask him to turn on the music. They then put their plan into action by sending Doc to impersonate a man named John who is interested in having sex with Cassandra. When Cassandra is sent to the trailer with him, he tells her to follow his example. When the family hears the approach of the team, music sounds, and Doc and Cassandra pretend to have sex, making moans. The distraction is triggered. Cassandra and Doc manage to kill one of the guards, and she stunned Tobies in the mouth. A group heading west breaks into the Upper Darby camp, where there is a cluster of zombies, and saves Cassandra and Doc. Toby Asby systematically tries to hide in a room where food supplies are stored, and when zombies take over the camp, they detain him and predetermine his somewhat ironic fate. The team leaves Philadelphia unharmed, listening to the music played for them by Citizen Z. Audie and Cassandra seem to have established a close bond through shared experiences, which somewhat worries Mac. The survivors end up in Pennsylvania, Holland, where several zombies are killed. The team is arguing about how the Z virus spread. One says it's possible from birds. The sniper tells the team that he had to kill his own father, whom he calls Ono. As they all move forward, it becomes alarming when they are being chased by some other group in a beat-up Volkswagen Beetle. Soon after, they encounter a group of zombies who are actually survivors disguised as zombies. People masquerading as zombies pull out weapons and say they want to take the truck. They leave on it, and the team remains with the Beetle in poor condition. Citizen Z tells us who died and who is who, and it turns out that he is in love with Ada. When the team catches up with their robbers, they discover that they are already being robbed by a family consisting of 4 people. When a family shoots down a gang that pretended to be zombies, the team is left on the sidelines, again left without their jeep. When they find this family dead, the team decides they really need to get out of this road. Returning to the listening station in the north, Citizen Z does not lose hope, as he finally hears a command speaking through a camera in a gas station. Citizen Z identifies Murphy, and the team asks about alternative modes of transportation. Citizen Z informs them of the potential location of the helicopter. The team is sent to the Emergency Infection Control Headquarters. Everyone is dead there except the soldier, and when they claim they have important information about the Z virus, he says they need medication. Then the sentry takes all the OxyContin that Doc had, swallows it and then takes them to the speakerphone to contact the general in the building. It turns out that the general has become mentally unstable. Charles decides to use this to his advantage and tells the general that the doctor can help. When Doc enters the house, he discovers that the general has a terrible bite. Then Doc tells the general that he will die soon and very soon. Angered by his comment, the general throws him into a ventilation shaft, as he had done earlier with another doctor. But Doc doesn't die right away. He gets hooked on some cables along with a zombie, which is also hooked. Back at the audition center, Audie and Citizen Z chat on Facebook, where she flirts with him. But it turns out that he uses her Facebook page and just writes to himself. Meanwhile, back at the center, the team hears Doc's screams in the ventilation shaft and enters the building with a security guard. Doc, in turn, prefers to get stoned with zombies. In the flashback, the sniper agrees to pardon his father when he dies, which will happen any minute. Returning to the present, the sniper kills another zombie. Meanwhile, in the elevator shaft, Doc and the zombies get high on marijuana, and Doc tells them that he has a child somewhere in the world. Meanwhile, in the general's office, the general seems to have completely lost his mind. In the elevator, Murphy has a panic attack and rushes to the exit, but the team does not have time to stop him when the elevator door closes. When the door opens on the next floor, they come out to go in search of him. Meanwhile, Cassandra, Audie and Mac are attacked by a zombie, which they kill. In the ventilation shaft, Doc finds something sharp and kills the zombie he got stoned with. Murphy hears his screams, but doesn't help him. The team kills a bunch of zombies and then reunites just in time when a giant zombie appears, gets into a fight and is dumped into a mine with a live grenade attached to it right to the Doc, allegedly killing him. Everyone mourns Doc, and then quickly goes in search of a helicopter. They meet a general who directs a rocket launcher at them, which turns out to be faulty. He quickly agrees to help them. The helicopter has no blades and is not in the best condition at all, and the general admits that he is infected. Then he is overtaken by zombies, as a result of which he falls from the roof. The team returns to the truck. Everyone is shocked that a zombie Doc is approaching them, and Roberta wants to shoot him. Fortunately, she misses, and it turns out that Doc survived the explosion. At the listening station, Citizen Z continues Suddy's imaginary conversation and sings another song for her. She hears him and is confused. And finally, in the memories of the sniper's childhood, we see how he still kills his father. The team makes a stop at an abandoned country house. While Mac and Audie sneak upstairs to have sex, Roberto and Charles explore the yard and kill all the zombies that rush at the electrified fence surrounding the house. While her romantic chemistry with Charles begins to flare up, Roberta reveals that they are not far from her hometown and she is not interested in paying a visit. According to her, she is haunted by memories of her supposedly deceased husband Antoine. Meanwhile, upstairs in the bedroom, Mac and Audie's attempt to make love is interrupted when she has a flashback of something that accidentally incapacitates her for the rest of the episode. A storm starts outside and zombies attack through the electric fence, so the team leaves the scene. In the north, at the listening station, a pretty drunk Citizen Z stumbles upon the weather maps in the country and advises the team to get into the house. While the team members are discussing what to do, they are forced to go to Castle Point, Roberta's hometown. When they stay at Castle Point, Roberta finds a photo of Antoine. The team seeks refuge in Roberta's old house, where they find a young woman named Jane, who is looking after her seriously injured husband Rick. When Roberta asks what they are doing there, the woman replies, "The fireman said we would be safe here." Roberta asks the young woman if Antoine is the firefighter who brought them here, although she is too panicked about her injured husband to confirm it anyway. Meanwhile, the zombies are approaching the house and the wind is getting stronger. In the upstairs bathroom, Murphy discovers that his skin condition is deteriorating, his hair is falling out, and his teeth are rotting. At the fire station, Charles and Roberta find medical supplies. Roberta regrets that she did not wait for her husband before leaving Castle Point. Suddenly, undead firefighters attack the fire station. Roberto and Charles kill one of them, which leads Robert to think that it could be her husband Antoine, but on closer inspection it turns out that it is his close friend Dearborn. Returning to Roberta's house, the team took refuge in the basement. Addie continues to suffer from her random visions, while Mac and Doc drill a hole in the injured young husband's head to relieve the pressure. When the drill breaks, they use Mac's gun to hammer it. Blood is splashing everywhere, which, according to Doc, is good. Back at the fire station, Roberta mourns the fallen firefighters. When he and Charlie go outside to fight the rest of the zombies, they are surprised to find that they are not there. They return to Roberta's house when a tornado hits them. Meanwhile, Murphy has taken a liking to zombies and is trying to figure out what makes them move. Roberta finds her wedding album and decides not to join the others in the safe basement. She decides to settle down in the living room and starts waiting for Antoine. While the rest of the team take refuge in Roberta's house, Cassandra and Sniper take refuge in an abandoned car. When the tornado turns the car over, the Sniper notices that Cassandra is holding onto his knee. A strong gust of wind turns the car over, but they survive. When a tornado hits Roberta's house, Murphy hugs a zombie for protection. During a hurricane, Roberta is rescued by an unknown man in fire equipment. Roberta regains consciousness. She miraculously survived the destruction, although her mysterious savior is nowhere to be found. As the storm passes and the team prepares to continue west, Murphy continues to go crazy. Doc donates some morphine to the couple. As they leave town, we see a lone firefighter walking across a field, most likely Roberta's inanimate husband Antoine. Citizen Z reflects on the many possibilities of where the zombies came from, whether it's comet dust, a real biblical apocalypse or something else. Meanwhile, members of a mysterious church in a small town in Missouri are putting their philosophy into practice, considering the zombie apocalypse to be the second coming of God, and zombies are called and to some extent revered as resurrections. Meanwhile, Murphy urinates in a field while the team discusses the possibility that one day he will turn into a zombie. In any case, the good news is that they are not far from Provincetown, the legendary safe haven. When they arrive at the place, they are asked to hand over their weapons at the door. 3 parishioners of the church ask for readmission to the complex and Charlie's old military colleague, Major Williams, allows it. During the tour, Major Williams tells them that the territory of the complex is free of weapons and guarded, and also tells them a little about the church. It turns out that the 3 people who were allowed to return to the church were adherents of the main preacher Jacob, who believes that the zombie apocalypse fulfills the promises of eternal life. Charlie and Roberta finally end their relationship by having sex in a separate room. Meanwhile, Jacob and his flock approach the complex, and inside 3 believers kill themselves with crucifixes similar to a blade and turn into zombies. Roberts and Charlie quickly get dressed when they hear a zombie attack. They explore the captured complex using books as weapons, kill a zombie that enters the door, and discover that they can get out through the emergency exit. Meanwhile, Murphy meets a frightened woman in the toilet, and when they are attacked by zombies, they ignore him and kill the poor woman. Meanwhile, everyone heads for the emergency exit and finds themselves pinned to the door as the zombies approach them. Ada almost completely loses her orientation when she has one of her terrible visions, but the magician brings her out of this state. Suddenly, the emergency exit door opens thanks to the valiant efforts of the sniper, who escapes with Cassandra, and the rest of the team is captured by Jacob. A mad preacher forces them to make a choice to join a living flock or become a zombie. While the sniper sneaks into the camp and gets a sniper rifle C-125, and Cassandra runs to the truck, Murphy suddenly declares himself the messiah of zombies, proving this by sticking his fingers in the zombie's mouth. Jacob is dissatisfied with this proof and pulls out a gun, saying that a bullet in the heart will reveal the truth. Murphy escapes when Charlie gets shot for him. Robert and the dying Charlie declare their love for each other, and he asks her to leave. Roberta wants to finish him off, but there is no time, as the team makes an escape. Roberta forces the team to stop at a safe distance from the camp and, with the help of a long-range rifle, shows mercy to the zombified Charlie. She also fatally wounds Jacob, who dies while one of his men tries to save him. The episode ends with Citizen Z still wondering what caused the apocalypse. Everyone is in Kansas right now mourning the heavy loss of Charles Garnett. Citizen Z gives a eulogy, and Roberta looks out of the window with a broken heart. When the truck has problems with the radiator, Atomac decide to go ahead on a motorcycle to find help. When Doc and Sniper fix the truck themselves, Sniper gets behind the wheel, apparently for the first time, and Doc teaches him the basics of driving. Meanwhile, the magician is thinking about leaving the group, but Audie says that it would be selfish to abandon both friends and his mission. Max agrees to stay with the team, but unfortunately, at the fork in the road they went the wrong way as the rest of the group. After that, the team splits up. With a Sniper at the wheel, the truck stops at Dad's called Fubar. There Doc meets an old friend named Sketchy McLean. Sketchy tells them there are no zombies for 100 miles in any direction, but Mac and Audie have just seen an advancing horde of zombies, proving him wrong. While Roberto is getting drunk, the team needs a new truck, so they decide to stay late and take part in shooting competitions. The Sniper finds out that he has competition with a Korean girl named Brittany, who apparently also has a good command of a sniper rifle. At the bar, Doc meets a seedy man named Foreman, who tells them about his giant car. Murphy decides to do without negotiating for Foreman's car by lashing out at its owner while he urinates on the barn wall, although things go a little wrong when Murphy bursts in for a second and actually bites the drunk survivor. Meanwhile, Roberta gets drunk herself and gets close to the bartender, while the shooting competition begins, and the Sniper falls in love with Brittany. Soon, a wounded and enraged Foreman enters the bar again and tells everyone that Murphy bit him. In the north, at the listening station, Citizen Z realizes that some kind of dust storm, which turns out to be a horde of wandering zombies, is rolling into western Kansas. As a result of a stylish shootout, 4 new zombies appear, which are killed fairly quickly. When Doc asks Murphy about biting a man, Murphy tries to convince him that he didn't. Murphy runs away, finds Foreman shot, extracts his tooth from Foreman's wound and puts it back in his mouth. Meanwhile, a horde of zombies is approaching. Roberta discusses Charlie's death and spends a tense moment with the inanimate bartender before killing him. Sniper and Brittany end the shooting competition in a draw, just as a horde of zombies begins a serious invasion. A Sniper wins a prize when he shows mercy to the driver of an ice cream van that was used to lure zombie targets in shooting competitions. When he and Brittany escape, she runs out of ammo, and he saves her father by shooting a pursuing zombie in the head. He gives Brittany a Chinese-made AMA-2 sniper rifle that he just won, and she kisses him on the cheek. Meanwhile, Roberta is single-handedly killing a ton of zombies. As the team prepares to leave the bar, the Sniper is attacked by a zombie, but Brittany saves him with her newly acquired rifle. The episode ends with Mac and Audie witnessing a lot of zombies appear on their way. Shortly after an unidentified alarm went off at the listening station, Citizen Z's vision blurs for a second and, raising his head, he sees a fireball from outer space rushing towards Earth. A Russian spacecraft landed near the station. Meanwhile, in a small town in Nebraska, things are not important. The team barely manages to find water and they are almost dehydrated to run when a huge horde of zombies approaches them. Abandoning their truck, they finally reach the shelter at the coroner's office, where they are joined by new survivors. Returning to the listening station, Citizen Z meets the pilot of the Russian spacecraft Yuri, a good-natured-looking cosmonaut. They drink Earl Grey tea, and Yuri talks about how hard life was on his space station and how he escaped on an escape capsule. They take out vodka and raise a toast to their survival. In Nebraska, Murphy is trying to rally the squad when one of the new survivors reveals that zombies are migrating from Canada because they don't like the cold. Most of the zombies were part of the survivor colonies in Alberta that transformed within a week. Murphy wonders if the zombies have a real leader when the team hears a scratching sound coming from a nearby morgue. Doc and the Sniper kill the zombies, and the team starts climbing into the body locker to hide. Back in the north, Citizen Z and Yuri play games and make friends. For Citizen Z, this is touching, until Yuri calls Citizen Z Simon instead of his nickname. In Nebraska, everyone climbs into the body vault, but by the time Roberta has sheltered everyone, the remaining block is occupied by zombies. When Roberta lets Murphy swaddle her in a body bag, she asks him not to leave them, as getting him to California is vital. He tells her that she took him as far as she could. Returning to the north, Citizen Z begins to suspect his new friend. Things get even stranger and more dangerous when Citizen Z comes out of the bathroom and discovers Yuri in a space station costume. A big fight begins, which ends with Yuri being tied to a chair. Yuri continues to ask Citizen Z what happened to his dog. The dog slept most of the day and all the time while Yuri was there. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, all the hidden members of the group conduct internal monologues while the sniper sleeps. The claustrophobia of the new survivor, Otis, takes over, and he tells them to all get out at the same time so they can attack the zombies together. Doc tells him that no one will go, but he doesn't listen. He gets out, but at the same moment he is eaten. Murphy meets a family that is hiding from a horde of zombies. He steals food and water from them and invites the zombified husband and father to return to the building to go to them. Returning to the north, Citizen Z is convinced that Yuri poisoned both him and the dog. While he is trying to figure it out, presumably with a splitting head, Yuri turns over the tables and now ties Citizen Z to a chair. The astronaut keeps asking, "What do you know?" Yuri asks Citizen Z what has changed today, as Citizen Z continues to believe that both he and his dog were poisoned. Yuri begins to strangle Citizen Z, asking what has changed, and Citizen Z says he has no oxygen. At this moment, the truth is revealed. Yuri was a hallucination caused by the rapidly deteriorating mental state of Citizen Z due to lack of oxygen at the station. This is the reason for the unidentified alarm. Citizen Z drags his unconscious dog to the main doors as the fresh air revives them. Returning to Nebraska, the horde completely passed through the city. Murphy starts walking past the morgue, clearly intending to leave on his own, but stops and, sighing, turns back to the morgue. Murphy returns to the morgue with food and water, using his psychological abilities to distract the only remaining zombie from Roberta, who is still hiding in a body bag. She asks him where he got his food and water, and he replies that he took them from a dead family. In the north, Citizen Z fixes a carbon monoxide detector, and then returns to the video game. He sighs, looking at Yuri's empty chair. Then he and his dog stand in front of an open exterior door and he tells his dog that they are alone again. Back in Nebraska, the team hosts a family dinner on the table and congratulates Murphy for finding so much food and water. Meanwhile, Murphy looks in the mirror and realizes that he has changed more than he thought. Mac and Edison are trying to catch up with the rest of the team with the help of Citizen Z, using a small beautiful montage to the music of Nancy Senators. There is some tension between them, partly from the establishments that Edison visits. In the end, she decides to tell Mac about it. This is an image of a dark place, a zombie and a man suspiciously similar to Mac. Mac tries to relieve the tension by telling her about his fantastic date with her, but Eddie spoils the mood by telling him that they will never work as a couple. They realize they've never been on a real date, and while Mac leaves to try to do it, Eddie falls asleep. Suddenly, Mac wakes up from Eddie's scream. When he rushes in search of her, he discovers a snake, corpses and a scary zombie, to which Eddie's aluminum bat has stuck. At the moment when Mac was crushed by a collapsed wall and eaten by a zombie, he wakes up. He asks if the lady is alive. Mac gets up and repeats the son he has already seen with a snake, zombie corpses and a big zombie, into which a copper spike bit is stuck, and her necklace is in his mouth. This time, the magician lures a large zombie into a trap under a fallen wall. Then he dies and wakes up again, believing that it was another dream. Then everything repeats again. The magician finds himself in an endless cycle of recurring dreams, each of which moves him a little further along the path of an existential nightmare, as he learns from the mistakes and blunders he made in the previous one. It turns out that a big zombie is trying to prevent Mac from going through the door in the warehouse, but this is also part of the dream. When Mac wakes up, he tells Eddie about all his follies. When they hear a zombie, they run after it with the intention of killing it, but instead discover the doors of sleep. Eddie is investigating. There is another wall behind the door, and when they try to destroy it, a zombie attacks and bites off Eddie's necklace. Mac kills the zombies and then helps Eddie. But then the zombie appears again. And Max wakes up again. In the next dream, Mac returns to the warehouse, walks through the door himself and goes down to the basement, where he finds a wounded boy and kills a zombie that appeared from the shadows. His will be Eddie, who tells him she knows he had a nightmare and screams why you're not dying. Max asks her where her necklace came from in the first place. And then Eddie wakes up. In the final sequence of dreams, Eddie hits a big zombie, walks through the door, goes down to the basement and sees an injured little boy lying on the floor. She is then attacked by a woman in the bathroom, who turns out to be Eddie's mother. So it turns out that Eddie had to kill his own mother, and since she didn't know about brain killing at the time, she just kept hitting her over and over again, screaming why aren't you dying? Matt wakes up, and we see that they have not left the clearing. When Eddie starts screaming, the magician runs to her to find her hunched over and sobbing because she killed her mother. She apologizes to Mac, saying she thought he was the one fighting her in the vision. She repeats, "God forgive me and I'm sorry. This has all been a nightmare, Maddie. That's why we went through these dreams within dreams to explore and release Eddie's terrible memories and a terrible secret for her." Eddie and Mac are missing again. Citizen Z is rowing eggs and seems almost as boring as a dog. In the Black Hills of South Dakota, the team stumbles upon a graffiti-decorated Mount Rushmore, which makes them look like zombies, as well as a factory for the production of industrial pipes. The team meets Wilbur Grady and his daughter Amelia Grady and agrees to help them stop an unstable nuclear reactor at the Edgeman nuclear power plant. The reactor threatens to pollute the environment within a 300-mile radius when it melts down in the next 48 hours. Amelia promises to fly out with Murphy on a small plane if everything goes awry. They run through a ton of zombies, kill them, drag Wilbur into a working elevator and run away from the scene. Shortly after, Wilbur returns from the station, but his attempt to shut down the reactor was unsuccessful. He dies, becomes a zombie and Roberta finishes him off. As the nuclear reactor is still under threat of explosion, Amelia learns that the only person who can help them is a man named Homer Stubbins, hiding in the woods. Arriving at Homer's house, where he survives, they learn that Wilbur tried to shut down the reactor by trying to cut the rope so that the nuclear rods attached to it would fall into the cooling pond. Homer says he will help and gets close to the sniper, as he reminds Homer of his son Max, who died during the apocalypse. Homer takes the sniper into the reactor and discovers that something is preventing the rods from falling, so to perform the trick they send a remote-controlled wheeled robot, Robbie, which fails when the zombies take it in their hands. Outside of the nuclear reactor, Roberta keeps order while Homer says that he will need help to get into the reactor himself and fix everything. They also need fuel for the plane to get Murphy out of the blast zone in case the reactor melts. Fortunately, Homer has a large supply of vodka at home. Roberta knows how to refit the plane to work on alcohol to get them out of the explosion zone. Murphy and Amelia are planning to fly to Wyoming, where other survivors are rumored to be. Roberta puts Murphy on the plane, fills it with alcohol and sends them on their way, but not for long. The plane crashes quickly, causing Amelia to get hit with a sharp object and turn into a zombie. Back at the edge, when they reach the reactor, the team splits up. Snipers and Homer go inside, and Doc and Cassandra go to Roberta. During the zombie attack, Homer's suit is punctured and he is exposed to radioactivity. No longer worrying about his own safety, he decides to get even closer to the radioactive pool with the help of a sniper. He is lowered to the liquid on a rope. After that, Murphy crawls out of the wreckage of the plane and, staggering, walks through the woods after the inanimate Amelia. He shows pity and tenderness for Camellia, which he has not done before. Homer and the sniper manage to shut down the reactor, after which Homer tells his young friend to kill him. The sniper can't bring himself to shoot Homer, so the old man makes it easier for him. He throws himself into the pool and dies. When the sniper exits the reactor, he is understandably upset and is comforted by document Roberta pulls up on a golf cart filled with vodka. Shortly after, Murphy comes out of the woods, followed by Amelia. Murphy stops them from killing Amelia, arguing that maybe it's time for another kind of mercy. They drive off into the sunset, leaving Amelia to wander through the woods alone. Eddie and Mac are somewhere underground, guided by Citizen Z, who reunites them with Roberta, Doc, Murphy, Sniper and Cassandra. It turns out that they are at an old black CIA facility, where Citizen Z directs the group by video link to supplies in the corridor along with a new car. Returning to the road, the team stumbles upon Sam, a young guy walking, who tells them he can get them food if they take him to Salt Lake City. The team drives up to a massive gate guarded by armed women, where they are met by Helen, the leader of the Sisters of Mercy, a refuge similar to Utopia, only for women and children. The team is allowed to get food and medicine for Cassandra's infected leg, but only if the men stay outside the complex. Inside the complex, which is a magnificent nature reserve, Eddie and Helen establish a bond between daughter and mother. When the younger woman finally expresses all her pent-up emotions associated with her brother and her zombified mother. However, the reserve has its own sinister side, for example, the rule that any male child upon reaching the age of 13 must leave it and walk to Salt Lake City. The boys were unknowingly sent to their deaths. Although Helen doesn't want to kill the children, she has made it a point to tell all the boys that their fathers are in Salt Lake City. And more importantly, all the boys are being lied to about the state of the city. According to Roberta, it is full of zombies and there is no chance that anyone will survive there. Thus, if the boys die during the trip to Salt Lake City, Helen and the others will not be blamed. It becomes clear that Helen is the leader of the cult and chose Eddie out of all the women because she knew that she was in a weak state. She even tells Eddie her own story about how she became the wife of a bad husband. She and her group also apply their own sense of justice, which sometimes includes locking bad men in a barn with a zombie bear. Helen asks Eddie to help rescue two women captured by a biker gang, and a worried Roberta joins them. When they encounter bikers on the road, Helen persuades Eddie to kill one of the bikers, who turns into a zombie. Two other bikers handcuff each other and a zombified third biker. This is too much for Roberta, who is ready to return to the road to California, but having left other plans, she decided to stay and join the pack. Mac is upset when Eddie informs him of his decision and chases her as she runs back to the camp gate. Meanwhile, the nurse who seduced Murphy is captured by one of the bikers who managed to survive an ambush on the road. Thirsty and vengeful, he calls Helen, but is soon put down when Max shoots him in the head. While Roberta and Cassandra leave the camp, Eddie tries to say goodbye to Mac for good. When Mac refuses to leave her, Helen shoots him. Although Eddie stops on the spot, she doesn't do anything to stop the others from shooting at Mac or her friends. The team leaves, but Mac can't stand it and jumps out of the car and runs to the camp to get his girlfriend back. When the team leaves Mac to his fate, several shots are fired, which suggests that the magician may have been killed when he was approaching the gate again. Meanwhile, a member of the Sisters of Mercy who had sexual intercourse with Murphy may be pregnant. The little girl in the complex seems to have stolen Eddie's locket, and young Sam is once again going on a lonely journey to Salt Lake City. When the team travels further west, they arrive at a checkpoint near the golf course. As usual, they are attacked by zombies, and they kill most of them with golf clubs and meet other survivors, Janice, Henry and Brett. Also, Murphy plays golf, and as usual, zombies don't attack him. Despite Warren trying to silence Murphy, he tells their new friends who he is, that he is the cure and that zombies don't attack him. Henry and Brad discuss the fact that Murphy's abilities may come in handy. The team drinks some alcohol at the club, where it turns out that they were drugged by the three who set off east with Murphy as a prisoner. Murphy is disappointed that his new escorts say they are not going to California, and that they do not want to disclose their real destination. Returning to the club, the team members regain consciousness and find that they are chained to a zombie, which they quickly deal with an umbrella. Freed with a golf club, they summon Citizen Z, who finds Murphy when he deftly looks directly into the traffic camera during a toilet break. It turns out that Murphy's new escorts want him to help them crack down on Mace's pharmaceutical company. Murphy reluctantly agrees to help, but when the kidnappers aren't looking, improves the moment to spit the flask. Soon after, Murphy discovers a new power in himself, discovering that he can control Janice's mind after she drinks water from the flask he spat into. He forces her to tell him where they are going, and she also informs him that her husband Jason was killed during their last attempt. Murphy uses this information to drive a wedge between Janice and Brett. At the pharmaceutical factory, Jennifer sees her ex-husband Jason, who is now part of the undead horde, and accuses Brett of killing him during their last attempt to raid the place. Murphy uses the procedures to infect Henry by scratching him and eventually Brett by biting him. Delirium lays out to Murphy an extremely intricate plan of penetration, which begins with passing through a building crowded with frostbitten Z's in search of a mega supply of OxyContin. Murphy then enters a zone full of zombies. Meanwhile, the team, chasing Murphy, discovers zombies who have reached Viagra. "You've officially seen it all, man," says Doc Sniper, looking at them with awe. He distracts the zombies by turning on the alarm, and finds a computer with which he communicates with Citizen Z, who is trying to track down the mysterious Dr. Murch, the scientist who injected him with a trial vaccine against zombies. Murphy turns off the alarm, and the zombies return to their outrages just at the moment when Roberto and the team come to the rescue. During the subsequent wild zombie attack, Janice finds herself face to face with Jason. Unable to kill him, she decides to die from his attack. Henry is torn apart by a mob of zombies, and Brad holds Murphy hostage at gunpoint until Murphy uses his psychological abilities and forces his captor to point the gun at himself. Brad pulls the trigger and shoots himself in the head. Roberta and the team are stunned to learn about Murphy's new power and travel to California in one of the pharmacy vans. For years before the zombie apocalypse, a doctor roamed the streets of New York and picked up drug addicts. We see him enter a building where a drug addict using a crocodile is alone in his apartment. The doctor says that he is not here to help a person, but for a person to help him. Then he injects part of the human brain matter with a syringe through the nose. Meanwhile, in the present California is no longer the final destination of the team. Citizen Z contacts Oren with the news. He tells them that he thought he was hacked, but he's sure it's a transmission from Dr. Murch, the doctor who originally experimented on Murphy. The group is now heading to Fort Collins, Colorado to meet with Dr. Murch. Murphy tries to express his gratitude to Doc, but Doc fights back, telling about the pain Murphy has to go through while they get to the lab. Meanwhile, Cassandra seems to be on the verge of death. On the way to Fort Collins, the team discusses their plans for the future. Doc is planning to buy a boat, Roberta is going to settle in California, and 10KO Sniper will have to kill about 6,000 more zombies. When they arrive at the scene, Roberta puts handcuffs on Murphy as a precaution. Murphy, in turn, heads to the entrance when many zombies are coming at the group. This forces them to hide in the car and call Murphy for help. After giving the team a little sweat, Murphy leads them through the crowd of undead into the laboratory. In the past, 3 years before the apocalypse, the same doctor appears in the Ebola quarantine camp, presumably to carry out the same process with the brain tissue of an Ebola patient. In the present, Sniper and Doc kill several zombies when the team infiltrates the lab, where they believe Dr. Murch is waiting to help Murphy. It turns out that all they find are old computer files indicating that scientists were working on a vaccine even before the zombie outbreak. As the team moves further into the room, they have to take off their clothes to undergo the decontamination procedure. The team sees that Murphy is almost covered in scars, and Oren says they seem to be growing. In the past, the same doctor is seen in pre-apocalyptic Kazakhstan at an abandoned biological facility together with a dirty policeman. Arriving at the scene, they find a corpse that has been dead for some time. Examining the body, the doctor releases toxic gas and gets rid of the policeman's mask, forcing him to inhale toxic gas. Then the doctor repeats the same procedure with the brain substance that he performed a few years ago. Further in the laboratory, they discover the results of experiments on people that were conducted earlier. Worse, they discover a new breed of zombie mutants, strong, deformed, ready to kill and completely unimpressed with Murphy. He is also not impressed by them, as, demonstrating sudden cruelty, he tears off their heads with his bare hands. While the team continues to explore the facility, Cassandra becomes too weak to continue, and the team finds a safe place for her to lie down and possibly die. Everyone says goodbye, and Murphy remains the last in the room. After going further without Cassandra, they discover a bloody trail on the floor leading to the quarantine zone. On the table they find the half-dismembered corpse of a man named Brandon Doyle, who is still alive. He lies in front of the computer, where he shows them a video about how he became like this. He was infected with a virus, and Dr. Murch injected him with a trial vaccine. She prevented him from turning into a zombie, but she didn't let him die. The door to the lab opens, but instead of Dr. Murch, the doctor we saw in flashbacks appears before us. He introduces himself as Dr. Kurtz, who says he has come to help. Citizen Z, who has access to the world's most high-end facial recognition software, quickly realizes that Dr. Kurtz is not who he claims to be. After some research, he finds out that this is actually Dr. Walter Curran, who is accused of selling biological weapons to North Korea, Iraq and Iran. Realizing that they have been lured into a trap, Citizen Z tries to warn the team to kill the doctor. Curran tells the group that Doyle was patient zero and that Murphy should go with them. Murphy volunteers to kill Doyle, and Doyle whispers, not trusting him. After he finishes him off, Murphy refuses to go with Curran. Doc tries to calm everyone down, and the sniper sees on the screen messages from Citizen Z that they have to kill Curran. At this moment, someone knocks on the door of the laboratory. Cassandra enters, looking like a zombie with a bite mark on her cheek. She speaks slowly and asks the soldiers not to shoot her as she is not dead. Murphy then looks at Cassandra and gives her the order to kill Curran and his team. A shootout ensues. Cassandra easily deals with 2 soldiers, after which Dr. Curran shoots her. During the fight, Doc gets wounded, and Murphy runs away. Murphy runs through the lab, pursued by Curran. In the decontamination room, Citizen Z warns Murphy not to break quarantine without going through decontamination. In this case, a tactical nuclear device from Narrett will be fired at the laboratory. However, Murphy is sick of it. He accuses Citizen Z of leading them into a trap and refuses to trust him. Murphy shouts that he doesn't trust anyone, he's lost everything, including himself. When Citizen Z almost manages to deal with him, Curran breaks through the door and points his weapon at Murphy. Murphy opens the door and activates the fuse, which immediately goes off. Meanwhile, the rest of Team West is still in the lab trying to revive Doc when the soldiers Cassandra had previously killed show up. However, Cassandra also returns and fights them off, giving the team time to escape. They get to the elevator and find Murphy's skin and clothes, but they don't have time to think, as they see that the warhead is moving in their direction. While Citizen Z is watching what is happening, he receives a signal about the launch of several other warheads around the world, which are defensive means, a third strike weapon against a nuclear attack, mounted on triggers. Among the targets is the Northern Lights command post, where Citizen Z himself is located. Citizen Z rises to the surface and looks at the warheads flying to the set targets, muttering, "God, how I hate the apocalypse." At the end of Robert's episode, Citizen Z, Sniper, Doc, Mac, Eddie, Murphy, and Dr. Curran confirm that they are alive, although their continued survival looks bleak. The season is ending.